Welcome to the JEMS Report, brought to you by Clarendon Events, Fire and Rescue Group, and the Journal of Emergency Medical Services. My name is Ted Lee, and I'm the editor-in-chief of JEMS Magazine. Along with Jeff Frankel, our managing editor, we will be bringing you subject matter experts and leaders in pre-hospital medicine and EMS. Today, we have a very special guest, Jeremy Mast, the CEO of Tri-County Ambulance Services. And today, we're going to be talking about leadership during difficult situations. So thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Why don't you start off with giving our audience a little bit of your background, where you're coming from, how long you've been doing this, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, thank you. So I've been part of fire and EMS for actually 30 years this year between Goshen Fire Department as a firefighter paramedic, and then now with Tri-County Ambulance Service, a private family-owned business in the northern part of Indiana. Been here for since 2013 now. So, and then my role's changed a little bit, although I'm still a licensed paramedic. As chief operating officer, I just oversee the day-to-day operations of the business. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your service. 30 years is a long time. No worse for wear. You're right. Looking pretty good. So.
Well, thank you.
So, in talking about leadership during difficult situations, I mean, we've seen a lot of stuff in the news, of course, the hurricanes that come through, a lot of publicity, a lot of people looking at those. There's a lot of, information coming out and feedback, the wildfires in California, the fact that it seems like North Carolina and South Carolina seem to be on fire right now, as we speak. But your service went through something that was a little bit smaller in scale than one of those big events. But it's definitely, brought up the, day to day, these type of events that tend to be maybe high profile or high impact in a service, regardless of size, makes leadership a little bit, difficult and how you kind of manage the waters, as you go through those things. So, I'd like to get a little bit of insight from you about how somebody in your position manages those difficult situations.
Yeah, for sure. I think first and foremost, you have to look back at what I was able to learn coming up through the ranks. I was fortunate enough to work under some great fire chiefs, some great battalion chiefs, and even at the truck level, the officers on the engines and stuff that made decisions that made sense. They were looking out for the crew. They're looking out for the department. Here at Tri-County, we have great ownership, and we have a good group of admin, and very supportive. And I think, first of all, you have to establish that, right? You have to make sure that before that event takes place, that you've put yourself in a position to be successful as you come out of those difficult situations. And so I think some of it, is just that, is taking advantage of the opportunities you have to ask the right questions and to attend the right classes and really be impacted by those people that you value their leadership and you value the way they deal with situations on a day-to-day basis. They're more likely to make the right decision when the time it's needed the most, right? And looking out, how do you as a leader, how do we handle those day-to-days? Does the crews and everybody feel the support of the leadership, and does the leadership then have support of either the ownership or of the municipality or the mayor, whatever, whichever you come from? And so I think a lot of it is just preparing for what you have no idea you're going to respond to. And we talk about that in fire and EMS all the time, right? So I don't think some of these situations are necessarily any different, just like you don't know what you're going to pull up on in so many different scenarios. So when you have a bad outcome, when you have something that your crews never expected to deal with at the start of that shift, how do you then handle that? The situations that we've had, the first thing that I've made sure is I made sure that I was on scene. I was made sure that they knew that they had my support, that they knew that they had the support of the ownership and of everybody at Tri-County. And the situation that transpired was nothing to do with what they did. They did their job. and something happened that they had no control over. And once they feel that confidence, and once they know, because of what we've established before that event happened, that gives the confidence, and that helps, I think, that situation to move forward. And then, making sure that they have the connections and have the resources they need then to deal with the situation, once the adrenaline starts wearing off, and once there starts to be that lingering feeling of what if, or all these things that kind of people go through as they go through the process. Are the right people available at the right place and the right time for them to talk to, for them to have, the debriefings and all that stuff. We have a great medical director, and he's been very supportive as well. I mean, to me, it's about the prep going into this stuff and making sure that you've put yourself in a position to be successful no matter what comes up. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. Doesn't mean that there's not going to be some times in which you feel like it was a failure. But when you come out of it long term, were you successful based on the best you could do with the situation? And unfortunately, there's so many factors that go into each situation that, the crew came out safe. Everything that could be done was done. And I think when it comes to dealing with that stuff, a lot of it is just making sure that you've done what you could do prior to it to put yourself in that situation to be successful.
I think the kind of the buzzword that people have been talking about now for quite a while, it's been around forever. But, we talk about the culture of the organization. And, as you mentioned, the small things that are done, they're done every day, and the crews know kind of how the leadership is. Leadership knows, how the management group is, and they know how they are day to day. So even though there's no way that you can plan for every incident or everything that might come down the pike, the reactions and the expectations are known, because, like you said, you've prepared for those type of things. So, how does this, maybe change, or, how does the focus or priority kind of change when you have an incident on the cruise? You mentioned that, that the crews were safe, that things were done correctly. Can you speak a little bit more, about how from day to day, okay, now we've had an incident, what might change a little bit, or what might, reprioritize? What is always on the list of important things? And we have like 10 or 20 important things, and they're always important, but what jumps to number one, number two in those type of situations for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, in a private ambulance service where so much of our dispatch system comes into our own dispatch center, we have the ability maybe to look at ways we can vet some things and make sure that there's certain things in place that will hopefully help that call go smooth and make sure that we're not missing anything. So that was the first thing we definitely did, is we went back through and we reviewed, that particular call. Was there anything, that was unique about it or different about it, and then the other thing I think that we did is we had to engage with the support people around the community too, with hospitals and with other fire service and with PD and all these different agencies. Those events really define a community, right? And they are an opportunity. There was great support from the area fire service. There was great support from the PD, and so those opportunities to really re-engage with them and make sure that we've crossed all the T's and we've dotted all the I's. And so that, if there's a bad outcome or there's an experience that happens in which we need to come together again, maybe it's not us, maybe it's one of those other agencies that they now need our support. So, a lot of it is just ensuring that things are in the right place. And if there's things that we can do to strengthen some of those relationships and strengthen some of that information gathering kind of stuff, then we do that. And you learn from it, unfortunately each call, each day, you're always learning something in this environment, and so this was just another one of those days for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned back, mass disasters, the hurricanes, the fires, the floods, and all that. Those tend to generate a lot of focus. Everybody's paying attention to them, and it's easy to be a community when you have that type of event. But these day-to-day singular events that come up, that are kind of high profile, high risk, or impact. Sometimes you didn't expect one of those, and you're like, wow, we haven't talked to law enforcement, we haven't talked to our fire group or our hospital group in a while since the last disaster plan that we had, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, whatever. So I would think that, these are also opportunities. You said, after action type stuff where you look back, opportunities to make sure that you are engaged with your community. So if something like this were to happen across the board, for any of the entities, that the support structure is still there. It doesn't have to be a week long or a month long or 2 month long event. It can be a singular event that, really does draw on the local community.
Yeah, Tri-County has been fortunate to be involved in a lot of different scenarios. We have ambulances and medical trailers on the West Coast for wildland EMS. We work with Pafford and FEMA down south in deployment opportunities for hurricane. We were in the area for Helene. We were in New York City during COVID, helping. We've had the opportunity to put our crews in some areas to really strengthen who they are as EMS workers, and it doesn't matter what, whether it's an EMT, a paramedic, we have critical care medics, all that. So there's been opportunities to really see the dynamics and the scope of what EMS is. Oftentimes it's so associated with, hospital-based, private, fire-based, whatever, and you forget all these other opportunities that are out there to just be part of the EMS community. And I think that helps strengthen what we do locally too, right? Because we have those opportunities. Just a great experience with FDNY and opportunities down south with FEMA and the agencies that work with FEMA and with Pafford, and then out west with the Forestry Service and CAL FIRE and the different state fire services and all the other agencies that come together for these common goals of what they're up against and stuff. And I think just giving the crews the opportunity to engage in those environments allows them also to develop that confidence and strength in their decision making and in the way they adapt to certain scenarios or the way they have to make decisions that, hey, you know what, I'm out here on the side of a mountain and I've got people telling me to do this. I need to treat this or that, and you learn how to lean on each other, but also to have the confidence in yourself to make the right decisions and know that your education and everything you've gone through, man, it just comes out and you get through it.
Yeah. Well, of course, horrible things, happen all the time. And, if nothing else, we should be able to gain, experience and kind of the what to do, and okay, let's never repeat that again. That didn't work out well for us at all. We need to find another way, to manage this. Definitely, helps services, through this. So focusing on the crews themselves, and we're talking about recruitment, retention. These are always big buzzwords for the EMS community, and big events and small events, definitely do have impacts on the individual providers and their career sometimes on whether they're going to stay in. How does leadership focus on, the needs of the crews during those difficult times?
Yeah, I think oftentimes when you're in a leadership role, you're pulled in so many different directions, right? And you have all these responsibilities and obligations. And, sometimes those kind of become a little bit overwhelming and you forget, there's all sorts of classes in the fire service and in EMS about back to basics, everybody, and that's, they're exactly right? Like in the end, my job in this office is to support the people doing the work every day on the street. and I have to do what I can. I love military history. I love history in general. And Hal Moore is somebody that if you get a chance to read how he led during, his time in Vietnam, it was about he was the first one on the field and the last one off the field. And as leaders, it doesn't matter whether you wear the uniform or you're in turnout gear or in your, white shirt, white hat, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's about your example. It's about the confidence that everybody around you has in your ability to make the decisions. And I want that opportunity for those people that work here at Tri-County to know that they have the support of me, but they also have the support of the ownership and they have all the other support of the admin. And I think when you set yourself up to be successful that way and that kind of an example of a leader, then when they need you the most, they feel comfortable leaning against you. They feel comfortable in coming to you because you've made that availability, right? You've created that relationship. You've asked about things. You've asked about their family. You've been there washing trucks with them and cleaning up after nasty calls. Everything that you've done, you've been engaged in that. And so that you've developed that relationship when things were good, so that when things were bad, they knew you were still standing right there next to them, and they had that confidence that you would be there and you had their back. And I've been fortunate enough to work, like I said at the beginning, with some great leaders that have taught me that. The ownership here at Tri-County has been amazing, and they're that way. So I think I've been fortunate enough to see that as an example, and I'm just trying to do that so that whoever's watching me, hopefully they see the benefit in what I've learned, and hopefully I'm passing that on. Because to me, that's what the fire and EMS service needs. This is not going to get any easier. There's so many ways that fire and EMS is getting pulled and stuff like that. And those that have the desire and have the opportunity to lead, we need to all make sure we don't squander that. And part of that is going to be measured on how we deal with those calls and how we deal and support our crews when it, so-called hits the fan.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and, we've seen a fair amount of turnover in fire and EMS, and, promotions come kind of quick to some. And, I can remember in my various roles in various organizations, it was always a matter of trying to make sure that somebody was prepared as best they could, because you never know when they're going to be alone or the crew will be the only crew that responds to something at 3:00 in the morning and doesn't have a ton of support at first. But they feel confident and comfortable to know that, more support is coming, but this situation, we didn't prepare for it at 3:00 in the morning. Or that, they are going to move up the chain and, they will be in middle management or leadership position. And sometimes it happens a little bit faster than we would expect or would have liked. But when they have great examples and they have great mentors, then, making those decisions, I might have seen somebody do something similar and it came out good, and this was the policy or this was the way that we handle things internally. And, I've seen that example. So I'm going to emulate that example and I'm going to do it the same way. I think definitely helps. We can't lead from the back. We can't lead from the office. To your point, being there when you can, helping them clean up when you can. You mentioned being on scene very quickly, so that they see you around and they see you as a resource. There is a certain amount of comfort that comes with that, and be like, oh my gosh, things are going crazy here, and be like, oh, there's our leadership. They're here to help. This is great. We can manage this. Still crazy, still chaotic, but we're moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. I think, you're spot on. So
we're just about at 20 minutes. And, I'll keep you here for, a few more minutes. Anything that you have in mind and, that you gained from your experiences and kind of your coming up through the ranks, as, examples or best practice for, some of the newer people that, might only have a couple years in the service, or are looking to make that next step to, yes, I'm a very good, line EMT, line advanced EMT, or paramedic, but I'm looking to move up into that next role for my organization. Any tips, tricks, things to think about?
Yeah, it's interesting because you don't realize how, when you get to that 30-year mark, you sit there and go, I'm the guy now having breakfast with all the retirees and stuff like that, and it's kind of a weird feeling. But I think the one thing that sometimes we lose sight of is the importance of being a rookie, right? Like, some of the best advice I got when I first got on the job was being a sponge. Like, just don't say anything, just listen, just observe, just take it all in, right? And then when I was in medic school, it was like, whoever you're doing your clinicals with, look at what they do right, and take all that from all those different experiences to make a good medic, and see things maybe you would do differently and learn from that too, and same with the leadership. You get a battalion chief, or you get a chief, or you get whatever, and there's some that are more involved than others, and you witness that. You hear what the crews say about those individuals. You hear, and if you just take a step back and you look at it in its totality, and you sit there and go, man, what do I want people to be saying when I'm not around? And how do they trust me? Like, if I make a decision, do they trust that? Or as soon as I leave the room, they're saying something? What have I done to put myself in a position to where my decision-making is trusted? And it's trusted because I've examined everything in its totality, even if it's just a few seconds. I've prepared myself for that environment the best that I can. And people around me have the confidence that, hey, we're going to be okay. We're going to get through this. We'll manage the situation and stuff like that. And I think when I look back, I say, man, 30 years of observation. I think so often we're just in a hurry to do everything. You just talked about climbing the ladder. Man, we're in a hurry to get to that next rank, or we're in a hurry to get to that next promotion. And we haven't really taken a step back and man, have we gained everything that we need to gain where we are? We're so worried about tomorrow. We're so worried about next year that, man, we forgot to deal with today, And so I think when I talk to EMTs, I'm like, don't be in a hurry to go to medic school. Become a good EMT. That way you can become a good medic. You have to build that foundation if you're going to build anything on top of it that's going to have any sort of stability. And so I think that's what I've learned just watching people. And that's what I always tell people when they come. Tri-County, we hire a lot of young EMTs, and a lot of them, they want to be on a fire service. So they have other aspirations. I mean, we've had ones that are now doctors and chiropractors and RT. We've just had such an amazing group of people that have come through this organization. And I always try to tell them the same thing, like be a good EMT, then you can become a good medic. Absorb everything that's going on. There's so much stuff to learn, but there's also a lot to experience. And when people become so motivated just for whatever's next, I think oftentimes they miss out or they miss something very valuable that they needed to learn where they're at currently.
Right. Well, I think, in our professions, there's enough of the natural rush that we don't need to facilitate it and add to it anymore. And there's always that risk of, people that are elevated too quickly weren't ready for it. And then you put them in difficult situations and the outcomes are not as favorable as you would have liked. And, sometimes it just comes back to that's what we had to do. We didn't really have a choice. They were put in that situation. We didn't really plan it that way, but it happened. And we have to learn from that and move forward. But, we'd like to put people in the best possible situation so that they're the most successful for themselves and for our community and for our services, for sure.
Well, and this profession is type A personality, right? And and there's a lot of just great people with great ideas, and they're highly motivated and all that stuff. And sometimes it's just about helping to direct them or helping to give them opportunities to be successful, because that's their desire. Their desire is to be that problem solver. Their desire is to take care of whatever's in front of them. And sometimes we create problems. The more we try to hold back on them, it's like, all right, let's try to steer them in the right direction and then let them go, because, we do that. And so it's a balance for sure. And Yep.
Well, I wanted to thank you again for taking time out of your schedule to talk with me. Very interesting, topic that comes up, and it doesn't have to be a huge event. It can be a singular one. It could be something that happens, in rural or in suburban or urban on a Tuesday, and nobody ever planned for it. But building that community, building that trust amongst the staff, consistency, in leadership and management becomes really key for safety and the success of the overall mission. So thank you again for talking to me. I really appreciate it, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.
No, thank you very much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.